And let me once again welcome everybody officially to today's event, Seizing Opportunities in Green Affordable Housing. This event is sponsored by KnowledgePlex and the Government Innovators Network. I'd like to point out that the opinions expressed during the course of this event are those of the participants only and do not necessarily represent the views of KnowledgePlex Incorporated or the Government Innovators Network, nor their staff, officers, or directors. And I'd like to begin, as we so often do, by administering this audience composition poll. So if you wouldn't mind, if you'd all just click on the option that is most appropriate for you, and this will give you and our experts a better idea of who's in our audience today. Wait a few more seconds for that to tabulate, but it looks like we've got a pretty good spread. All right, well, thank you very much for that. It looks like we cover the professional spectrum today. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn the event over to our moderator today, Paul Grogan, who is President and CEO of the Boston Foundation. Mr. Grogan.
Thank you, Jim. It's a real pleasure to be here with everyone today. This is I think a first, certainly for me, maybe for some others, in terms of using this technology to communicate, so I'll be very interested in the program. I think we have a terrific program for everyone, and it's going to be my pleasure to moderate the proceedings on seizing opportunities in green, affordable housing. We have three expert presenters that we're going to hear from to get things started, and then we can proceed to the questions as Jim said. So it's my pleasure to introduce our three experts, and I'm going to introduce them all at the start of the program, and then they will give their opening presentations in the order that I introduce them, and then we'll go from there. First, we have Jonathan Rose, who is the founder of the national real estate firm Jonathan Rose Companies, LLC. This is a firm that collaborates with cities, towns, and not-for-profits to plan, develop, or acquire environmentally responsible projects, creating vibrant, diverse cultural centers with a balance of jobs, housing for all income levels, open land, and transit. He's a leading thinker in the smart growth movement and a frequent speaker and writer on the subjects. He's on the board of the Enterprise Foundation, the Natural Resources Defense Council, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, American Museum of Natural History, the Urban Land Institute, and the Garrison Institute, which he co-founded with his wife, Diana. Second, we're going to hear from Dana Bourland, who is the Senior Director of Green Communities for Enterprise Community Partners, an affiliate of the well-known Enterprise Foundation. She oversees all aspects of green communities, including strategic planning and program development, planning and construction grants, technical assistance and training support, research and evaluation, and public policy advocacy, and works with Enterprise's financial affiliates to package and integrate the delivery of various forms of project financing to green communities, including equity investments and pre-development loans. She's also co-leading an internal effort across all of Enterprise's affiliates to expand the organization's environmental commitment through creation of new products and services and more sustainable operating procedures. And finally, also from Enterprise, we're going to hear from Stockton Williams, who's the Senior Vice President for Sustainable Development, Public Policy, and Innovation at Enterprise Community Partners. Works with major financial institutions and foundations, leading national organizations and policymakers at all three levels of government to develop new resources, partnerships, and solutions to advance Enterprise's mission. He also serves as the Managing Director of the Enterprise Terwilliger Fund, which, when fully deployed, will generate $100 billion to create 2,000 affordable homes on an annual basis. He's a trustee of the National Housing Conference, member of the Trust for Public Lands Real Estate Council, and a member of the Board of Directors of the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Coalition. So those are our three experts, and Jonathan, if you would start us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. This is actually, you're right, this is a very interesting technology. So okay, so have my slides come up for everybody? Or do I run my slides, or do other people see them?
Yeah, go right ahead. We're seeing them.
Okay. So this first, I want to talk about the greening of affordable housing first from a larger point of view, and that is the point of view of the globe. We are greening really for three reasons. We're greening for the residents themselves and for their health. And as much as greening of affordable housing saves energy, even more importantly, it provides a healthy environment. And particularly in the inner city neighborhoods that so many of us work on, there are tremendous environmental impacts. Just to give you one example, inner city neighborhoods tend to have much higher cockroach infestations, therefore they have much higher insecticide loads, and studies now show that those loads not only reduce the birth weight of children, but reduce their intelligence, and in some cases very significantly. Studies of prenatal mother's blood showing the amount of insecticides, and that when you move to integrated pest management, immediately the studies show a rebound to normal birth weights and increase in intelligence. So as much as we focus on energy, more and more we really believe we are building green buildings for the health of the resident. And to take somebody out of a homeless shelter or a very bad condition or doubling up and put them into a new home that has all the promise of the future but that is toxic is an unfair thing to do. The second thing we focus on green is for the health of the community development organization itself. We have seen energy prices double over the last few years, and they are certain to double again. And the more we can create buildings that are sustainable for the owners, the community development organizations, and private developers, by reducing energy and other operating expenses, the better. And one of the sides of green building is that we're not only reducing energy costs, but they typically are using much more durable materials. And the third thing is our moral responsibility and impact on the earth. And if you look at what is slide 2, what you will see, this is a refugee camp in Ethiopia of refugees that came from Somalia. And the reason they're refugees is from a war that was caused by a water shortage that was caused by climate change. And that we are seeing vast, hundreds of millions of people across the globe now who are being displaced, who are suffering enormously because of the primary impacts of climate change. And this is only going to get worse. And since we are an interdependent world, we believe that we need to do our work for all three levels. So now if we go to the next slide, this is something that is called the wedge strategy. It was promoted by professors at Princeton, is widely being used. The only way we're going to attack the issue of climate change is there's no silver bullet solution. So we have to combine electricity end-use efficiency, which we're aiming for in our buildings, and passenger vehicle efficiency, which Congress doesn't have the guts to pass right now, and renewables and many other things. So it's only by a combination of strategies that we're going to come up with a holistic solution to climate change. The next slide, which is some Eskimos in front of an igloo, and this is a model for me because this is the greenest building I know. And it's green not just because it's made out of snow and ice, but in it are many lessons, which I'll show you a little bit later how we apply, for how we really create green buildings. What's amazing about this is the Eskimos eat blubber, and blubber, if it's below 32 degrees, gets frozen. So the thickness of the igloo is designed to be just thick enough to capture the heat of the earth to maintain a relatively constant temperature of about 40 degrees. And so this is not only, so what you're seeing in this one building, the skin is the architecture, it's the structural engineering, it's the mechanical engineering, it's the food refrigeration system, and you see there's this long tube and then the round part of the igloo in the back, and then there's a whole cultural way that's evolved for how they live in their buildings successfully. So it's an amazing example of integrated design. And as we move towards really focusing in our buildings, we really focus on the skins of our buildings. And if you insulate them properly and daylight properly, etc., you can really achieve extraordinary energy efficiencies at no additional cost. The other thing we really focus on is location. So this chart shows you, combines the yellower lower part is the energy use of a building. These happen to be single family mostly. And the upper part is the energy use getting to and from the building. So you'll see that an average single family house out in the suburbs uses 240 million BTUs if you combine the house and the energy getting to and from the house. You can green the house and change the cars to hybrids and lower the energy by almost, by a significant amount. But if you place the same single-family house in an urban area, and all of our cities have urban areas with single-family houses, even New York, you can lower the energy use to 143 million BTUs simply because the family is walking and taking mass transit so much more. By the way, in all these models, we have the family going away to a weekend house somewhere, and the reason we do that is that we want to show this is not a model of suffering. If you green the house, the urban house, and you green the car, you lower the energy use to 89 million BTUs, but if you make it an urban green multifamily house, you lower the energy to 62 million BTUs, or 1/4 of suburban sprawl. And so it is really clear that green multifamily urban housing, which means denser housing next to transit and main streets and walkable communities, is a significant contributor to the solution to our climate change problem. This is, as you see, it is a 3/4 reduction, and that is just something that's extraordinary and very much needed in these times. So now let's look at actually how we do that. So this happens to be a picture of a building we renovated called the Burning Building. It's in a suburb. It's in Irvington, New York. You'll see it's right next to a train station, and it's where the train station and the main street meet. It's, as I said, a renovation of a historic building. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see we capture the historic features, and it's quite beautiful. And actually, one of the things we really aim for in all of our buildings is that they be places that we would like to live in ourselves. The next slide shows us a library, and the way in most of our buildings, communities not only need housing, they need all the social and cultural infrastructure that makes for healthy communities. So in this, we moved the community library, and that also helped enormously with the community acceptance of this project. So let's go to the next slide, and what you'll see is how we insulated it, which is cellulose blow-in insulation. An amazing product because it's a recycled fiber. It doesn't cost a penny more than normal insulation. You'll see that it's much, it fills every nook and cranny and crack. It's actually a much better insulator than the pink stuff, which often leaves gaps around electric boxes, etc. It is a much, much better acoustic insulation, and it is fireproofed or stabilized with boron, and boron is a natural insecticide. So remember earlier I was talking about insect load, and this kills all cockroaches. The insulation itself does. And so you get all these benefits, health benefits, sound benefits, better insulation benefits, and it's recycling a product, and it doesn't cost a penny more. And this is in the facade. So again, remember our igloo principle. We love to focus on the facade. I think I'm going to stop now with this, and I have other projects I can show if called for to demonstrate other principles.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you very much. We'll hope to come back to those later in the program. So, Dana Bourland, you're next.
Terrific. All right.
Dana, Jim Cooney, I just wanted to check in with you. Are you still not seeing the slides on your screen?
I used your advice and was able to get back in, and now I see slides.
Oh, great. All right. Take it away.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for really articulating the broader principles of what we're talking about today. And what I hope to go through quickly, just to get the discussion started, is really what we're seeing happening in the affordable housing sector through an initiative the enterprise launched in partnership with a host of national partners, primarily including the Natural Resource Defense Council, of which Jonathan Rose sits on our board and NRDC's board. So the mission of Enterprise, as you can see, is to see that all low-income people in the United States have the opportunity for fit and affordable housing. And we see that really as a means to an end to really help lift people up and out of poverty. And it's through our mission that we see green building be an extension of what it is that we've been doing for the last 25 years. To really address fit and affordable housing today, we want to bring the benefits of green building to the affordable sector, both to benefit the communities where we're living and building and making flourishable places, as well as to benefit the people living in housing that they can afford. And it was just 3 years ago that we launched Green Communities and decided to set aside $500 million as a way of really getting us thinking and incentivizing us to think differently about the way we were designing and locating and building and also rehabilitating affordable housing. But really as a means of bringing the environmentalists and the community development professionals together to find new ways to do what we've been doing better and to make sure that the housing that we were providing was performing better, was using less natural resources, having a smaller environmental footprint at the same time that it was creating healthy, safe, and comfortable places to live. And it's been fantastic to see over the last 3 years just how this initiative has taken off through many of you who actually are on the call today with the developments that you're involved with. And we were able to establish with NRDC and the USGBC and AIA and APA, South Face Energy Institute in Atlanta and Global Green USA out on the West Coast to create a way of looking holistically at affordable housing to establish the Green Communities criteria. And we've invested, as you can see, over $430 million today, and that's 9,200 green affordable homes of all types across the country. And in the process, we've been helping to train and provide technical assistance as well as address policy change. And the framework that we've been using to think about green communities is that we can have better performing, greener affordable housing development everywhere. It can work in all settings, urban, suburban, rural. It can take place with new construction just as well as it can be integrated into rehabilitation of moderate rehab as well as substantial and adaptive reuse. And so our thinking is that we can all, no matter what type of development we're involved with, we can bring sustainable principles into our work, and in so doing we'll have a much better outcome. And one of the frameworks that we use to think about it is through the Green Communities criteria. And as much as we don't want to focus in on just standards, it is a good way to begin thinking about it the upfront, sort of in the design stages, or even as you're finishing your last project. How are you going to do it better? How can you better integrate the cultural context of the neighborhood into the development, the needs of the residents, the climate, and other specific features of where you're building? How can you bring that better into your next development? And so it is helpful to have standards. Green Communities criteria was designed specifically for affordable housing, and there are others that I'm sure you have heard of through the USGBC's leadership in energy and environmental design rating systems, as well as terrific state and local programs. I referenced South Face, which has Earthcraft, but there are others. And Green Communities is one way of specifically addressing what's possible in affordable housing. And so you really start with the integrated design process and think about what your goals are for your development in terms of energy usage, better materials, healthier living environment, what the needs of those particular residents are going to be. And that all happens in the very beginning in a way that's going to be carried throughout the design and construction of the project. But just as important is how we operate and maintain our development. And this is even opportunities for existing buildings that weren't built as green buildings. But there are things we can do in operating and maintain them to help them perform better. So I'll just quickly move on here and let you know that there's more information on Green Communities at this particular website, host of informational resources, tours of projects, and case studies on actual green development. But I think most importantly, even though we might not have all the scientific data in our hands at this point, we just know what we're hearing and what we're seeing, that this really is important. We know that we can be doing better, and that every time we integrate sustainable principles into affordable housing developments, it's having a big impact both on the environment and the people living there, and particularly on their health. And with that, I think I will hand it off to you, Stockton.
Great. Well, thanks, Dana and Jonathan and Paul. Also, it's really an honor to be on this virtual panel with you, having admired your leadership in our field for so long. I'd actually go back to the last slide that Dana presented, if possible, Jim, because I think it's a good transition into the last set of prepared comments we'll have, and then the discussion. And it really echoes where Jonathan started this conversation, which is, why this matters. Green affordable housing is important, not because green issues are thankfully becoming more popular and resonating more broadly in our society. It's important because of the very tangible benefits that it promises for our planet and for our communities, and for the low-income families that are ultimately who we at Enterprise care about most. And the last slide Dana showed had excerpts from two folks who I think both of them are on the call today.
Stockton, I'm sorry, this is Jim Cooney. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know that a few folks are having trouble hearing you. If you could get closer to your phone.
I'm speaking right into the receiver.
Oh, all right.
Try to speak a little louder. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. In that case, yeah, just keep trucking then.
My apologies if folks cannot hear. I think it's important to ground this, as Jonathan did, in why green affordable housing really matters. And so the work that New Ecology has done, and I believe Madeline is on the call today, to really start to demonstrate that there are significant cost savings that accrue both to building operators and to residents in green affordable housing is an important point for this discussion and the discussion that we'll have going forward. Certainly Enterprise's projects and Jonathan's work also bear this out. The second, to Jonathan's point about health, is that there is an emerging consensus among public health researchers like Dave Jacobs, the National Center for Healthy Housing, that in fact building green does create healthier environments with demonstrable health benefits for low-income families, especially children. And we need to know a lot more about which specific kinds of green interventions lead to the best health outcomes. But clearly, building green also means building healthy. I think in terms of the lessons that Enterprise and all of us who are participating in this amazing movement are learning, it is that affordable housing can be green, that it can achieve significant environmental performance without substantially higher development costs. Secondly, and this call is just one small example, there is huge interest in the affordable housing industry in going green and in solutions and resources that can enable affordable housing developments to be more healthy and efficient and sustainable. And that we're not quite there yet towards what Enterprise believes, and I think Jonathan believes, is our ultimate destination, which is for green and affordable to be one and the same. And I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes on that, because I think ultimately that's where we all want to see the field go, and where our discussion might spend some time afterwards. I was trying to get to number 9, Jim. My next slide. Let's see. Here we go. The first way to make affordable housing and green one and the same is to demonstrate, to prove that it can be done cost effectively, and that's what Jonathan and Dana and Enterprise's program are really doing. But we also have the opportunity in affordable housing in public policy to start to create incentives and requirements to make all affordable housing green. And listed here are just a couple examples of where we're seeing tremendous movement at the state level in the allocation of housing tax credits for affordable housing rehab and new construction. At the federal level in Congress, where bills are now moving that contain green communities criteria in the allocation of new resources of federal housing funds, and in regulations that the IRS and HUD are promulgating that set the ground rules for how owners and operators of affordable housing can operate their properties, which create incentives for green upgrades and green maintenance and improvement. And we all know, I think, about the leadership of a number of mayors around the country, climate protection agreement that Seattle Mayor Nichols has championed has been endorsed by hundreds of mayors and by the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Essentially, cities committing to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, and green affordable housing can clearly be an important contributor to those strategies. In the private sector, where market transformation will really be led, leading firms in almost all industries from.
Hi, Stockton. This is Jim Cooney again. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Somebody's speakerphone, I don't think it's yours, but somebody's seems to be very sensitive, and it's picking up a lot of background noise. If all the presenters could just mute their phones when they're not speaking, then I think that should help. Thank you.
Private sector leadership we're seeing, from leading corporations and financial institutions. And in affordable housing, we're now starting to see examples of major institutions stepping forward with resources and products to support green affordable housing. And Bank of America, through their recent $20 billion environmental commitment, is one of them. And, of course, leading nonprofit organizations, many of them on the call working at the grassroots level, organizations like Enterprise and LISC working nationally, and global nonprofits like President Clinton's Foundation have made a major commitment to attacking climate change, and Enterprise is honored to be a partner of the Clinton Climate Initiative in connecting affordable housing, green affordable housing solutions to that effort and to those kinds of solutions. My last slide describes next step for Enterprise, but really I think we would offer that these might be next steps for all of us in the movement to make green the affordable mainstream to consider taking together. As Dana mentioned, new construction of affordable homes is clearly going green in many parts of the country, and there's more work to be done there to prove the case and to demonstrate the benefits and to get to regions where green building in general has not yet caught on, but clearly new construction is moving in the right direction. Now we need to expand the focus into the existing building stock to look at larger sites and whole neighborhood redevelopment through a green lens. We need to continue to push the envelope on the environmental benefits that we're bringing as well as the health benefits, and so 25, 35, 40% energy savings are a good target to start, but let's make sure that affordable housing is part of the movement toward net zero energy homes and true carbon neutrality. It can happen with continued innovations in technology and new financial products. Continued work on public policy is going to be critical because we still do have a legislative and regulatory environment that's sometimes stacked against doing the healthiest and the smartest and the greenest kind of affordable housing, and we need to remove those barriers and create new incentives. And Enterprise as an organization is doing what I think many of you are on the call and taking its own environmental impact much more seriously and looking for cost-effective ways to be a more responsible organization, achieve some cost savings as a result perhaps, but more importantly do the right thing and really walk this talk that we're all talking about today on this call about the benefits and the practical reasons as well as the bigger moral imperatives to going green. So I will stop there and look forward to the conversation.
Well, this is Paul. I want to thank all three of our presenters for getting us off to a great start. We do have about 180 people on this web conference, and there are a number of questions that have been asked, which we'll get to in a moment. By the way, that 180 represents about 30 states and a number of countries around the world, including Australia, China, and the UK, as well as the distribution of professions that we saw in the poll. at the start of the broadcast. So this is an influential group with some reach. I thought I'd take the privilege of the moderator and ask a question or two myself just to get us started. Jonathan, but I invite the others to join in, struck by your slide that showed the tremendous gains that come from an urban versus a suburban location, quite apart from in the environmental measures that are taken. And yet the U.S. is such a suburban nation, which it seems pretty established that city living is only attractive to certain segments of the population. Is that really going to discuss here in the long run?
Well, there are several. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I put myself on mute. So there are several issues that are related to this. The first one is the United States is going to grow by 94 million people over the next 30 years. So we have a major question we have to answer, which is where are we going to put those people? And if as a nation we continue to put them in suburban sprawl, we are going to destroy ourselves. We just simply can't in any way, from a traffic and environmental or any other point of view, withstand that. And so we actually have to green our cities dramatically at the same time as we need to densify and we need to green them. And certainly there's a role for the suburbs. We're not going to get rid of the suburbs, and we believe one of the goals is you got to link the suburbs with mass transit. I happen to live in the New York metropolitan area where there's this amazing train system, and now in New Jersey a light rail system which is linking communities. But we must, as a nation, walk up to the idea that we're going to have greater density. By the way, we have trillions of dollars of infrastructure bills that are due, repair bills that this country has funded other things rather than funding its infrastructure over the last years. And the more density there is around infrastructure, the more cost-effective it is. This image that I'm showing you, which is, I would ask everybody, I do a poll question, where do you think this is? This is actually a picture of the Bronx. This is the Bronx River in the South Bronx, and this is the way the river flows through the Bronx. And we can take places like these river valleys and restore them, and so that people are living in density and yet they still have access to nature. And I believe if we do not follow that path, we're going to really have some serious negative consequences.
Anyone else want to get in on that? Well, my second question is before we go to our questions from our participants, I'd like each of you to respond. What is it really going to take to make these ideas mainstream? I mean, we have this ferment, there's excitement, there's interest, but I think this is still at the stage of being a minor phenomenon in terms of development orthodoxy or development attention. Certainly in the United States. What's it going to take to make it mainstream?
Well, this is Stockton Williams. I'd offer a couple thoughts on that. I think, Paul, you're absolutely right that if you were to measure the progress of the green building movement by, say, the number of projects that are registered in the U.S. Green Building Council's various programs, they're still a tiny fraction of the overall built environment. At the same time, though, I think you'd see a huge surge in just the last couple of years. And in affordable housing, I think it is, in fact, becoming the mainstream in some parts of the country and is poised to become the way we do business more broadly, perhaps more quickly than in some other building sectors. And I'll just give a couple examples. In the state of Minnesota, through the efforts of the Republican governor, a number of leading developers, local researchers, enterprise, private financial institutions, and some leading local foundations, essentially all new and rehabilitated affordable housing today is incorporating green criteria. That's in both the urban as well as the rural areas of the state. Certainly in Boston and in New York and in some large cities on the coast, more often than not, city building codes and affordable housing agencies are starting to effectively require pretty holistic green criteria as a condition of receiving public dollars for affordable housing. So I think the combination of demonstrated results on the ground and public policy leadership is moving us in the affordable housing industry anyway towards a day when we might be able to really call green, if not truly the mainstream, an increasingly common practice.
Jonathan, I had a thought that if we're really going to do this, the green housing people are going to have to be education reformers, because until city school systems improve, families with children are going to be very reluctant to be there, at least in great numbers. That's a huge problem in terms of attracting middle-class populations, as you know, or keeping them anyway in some of our cities. Let's go now to our questions. We have a question from Dan, and I think this is for you, Jonathan. What sources describe the link between health improvements and integrated pest management?
NRDC has some information on this. There's a researcher that what I was actually quoting was information from Mount Sinai Medical School, but also there's a researcher named Ricky Pereira who works at the Columbia University Mailman School of Social Research that has there's a lot of work that's been done on this issue, and also there's something called I'm forgetting the name of it, but there are a lot of kind of health and environment programs.
And I would just add to that as well, if you go to greencommunitiesonline.org, under information resources, there is a section on the benefits of addressing integrated pest management and the connection between particularly children and seniors, rates of asthma, living in places where there are cockroaches and other pests infiltrating into the home.
Okay, Arlo, who...
So, you know what? Can I give one more answer? Because I was just inspired. There's a picture that keeps coming across the screen now. Anyway, you can go on to something else. Go ahead.
Okay, Arlo, who works for an HFA, says, we're looking to require some minimum thresholds in design. What would be the top 5, in your opinion?
I'll throw out the first one, that should require an integrated design approach. So some evidence that the applicant for financing from you has brought their team together to think about how and what they're going to be able to achieve in terms of improving the performance of the development.
Okay.
You know, to me, there's 1 through 5 is all covered in the Enterprise Green Community Guidelines. They were really carefully thought through and designed for the issue for affordable housing developers. And if you just read their program and follow their checklist, it will take you to the greenest building that is physically achievable, and it's also been really tested on the ground with thousands of units, and we know that you do not add, they're either come in at cost neutral or maybe add 1 to 2% maximum cost to the buildings.
And is it possible to describe what those buildings achieve if those guidelines are followed? Is it carbon neutrality? Is there some outcome that can be succinctly described?
Those buildings will be performing at least 20% better than any building just built to sort of regular energy code. They most likely, if they just meet the basic green communities criteria, most likely wouldn't be carbon neutral, but would be drastically reducing their carbon emissions, probably at least 2.5 tons per unit. So in terms of energy, that would be what they are going to be doing. But there's a entire section on a healthier living environment. So the homes and the apartments would be significantly healthier. They would have proper inflows of fresh air, proper ventilation of fumes and stale air going out of the building, as well as taking into consideration, someone had brought up integrated pest management and other methods and materials to provide a healthier living environment. And they'll be consuming quite a bit less water, which we don't always connect directly to even our utility bills, you're both using water and you're most likely heating water. And so if you're meeting the green communities criteria, you're installing lower flow fixtures and toilets and appliances, so you'll be consuming less water as well.
We would
I just
expect
want
to generate savings on a per unit basis of a couple $100 a unit. The work that New Ecology has done has found this level of performance across a broad range of properties, and enterprises doing a great deal of evaluation of this subject as well, so we can really quantify some of these benefits.
Great. Someone else wanted to get in?
Yeah, but Jonathan, I just wanted to add that climate neutrality is a laudable but unachievable goal, not only for affordable housing, but our company also works with many cultural, there are organizations that are spending vast amounts of money that cannot get to climate neutrality. We just don't have those systems yet. So what this is really, the Enterprise Green Guidelines are really designed as the step that's practical, affordable, and achievable.
Thank you. Next, from Joseph, he says we've built over 15 homes using green methods. We have several projects, 117 homes in South Carolina, 17 homes here in Seward, Florida. What funds exist for these kinds of projects, and how do we tap into them?
One source of funding would be through Enterprise, and you could tap into them by just going to greencommunitiesonline.org, and you'll see information about the grants and loans that we have available. There are grants for planning, both for charrette grants for design work that needs to take place, small grants after you've completed the project so that you can transfer the design knowledge over to those who will be operating and maintaining and living in the building as well. And then there are construction grants for those of you interested in integrating the green communities criteria into your developments. And then through Enterprise, we have a host of financial tools and products available to you building affordable housing generally as well.
Dana, I'm not under the impression there's been a lot of national leadership on this, but are there HUD programs that offer financing for projects like this, or not?
There are actually, and Stockton, I'll let you take that one.
Until very recently, the federal government through HUD had done relatively little to encourage green and more energy efficient building, but this summer started to announce some very exciting initiatives, one of which essentially says that for owners of multifamily HUD-assisted properties that are going through the financial restructuring under the mark-to-market program, the requirement that owners contribute to 20% of the cost of building improvements is reduced all the way down to 3% if those improvements are green. So that has the effect of providing, anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 in direct subsidy to properties undergoing refinance and redevelopment under that particular HUD program. What I think is exciting, though, is that the U.S. Congress, with strong bipartisan support, is actually moving very aggressively to make green an important part of federal housing programs. And just one example is that the House of Representatives a couple of weeks ago passed legislation to create a National Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which would constitute the largest federal infusion of new public funds for affordable housing in many years. And among the factors that cities and states would be required to consider in allocating trust fund dollars to affordable housing projects would be the extent to which those projects incorporated green communities criteria. So I think we're seeing early signs of what could quickly become quite a significant push at the federal level in this area.
Well, as we all know, the states are also important players in housing as among other things, allocators of low-income housing tax credits. William asks, since the low-income housing tax credit has been one of the major drivers of affordable housing, what efforts are underway to influence the allocation plans of the state allocating agencies in this direction?
Well, I can take a crack at that as well. William, your question is right on. The low-income housing tax credit, of course, is the most important public resource for new construction and rehabilitation of affordable rental apartments that we have. And the good news is that the state housing agencies that allocate credits have been moving very aggressively themselves to incorporate green criteria. And so today, if we look at the plans in all 50 states for tax credits this year, the majority of them incorporate some green criteria, and a number have very strong holistic standards, in some cases based on the Green Communities criteria. Enterprise has actually done an analysis of every state's plans, green elements, in a user-friendly format for folks who are interested. And we've just posted on our website the look at all the state's 2007 qualified allocation plans for anyone who's interested.
That's very helpful, thank you. Marion asks, land use is determined locally, but the impacts are global. What are the opportunities for green zoning and getting beyond local politics?
Yeah, I think there's tremendous opportunity to address that. I think we're beginning to hear local jurisdictions begin to resonate with the notion of the green infrastructure and having those policies and regulations in place that really prioritize the type of land use development we want through green zoning and other mechanisms.
I think a very worthwhile effort that folks may be aware of and want to learn about is the U.S. Green Building Council, which is really the leader in the development of national green building standards, is piloting a program in green neighborhoods called LEED-ND, LEED for Neighborhood Development. And it is not dealing with zoning per se, it is creating a framework for whole environmentally oriented communities that will deal directly with ways to improve zoning and land use policies in cities and create, I think, models and projects that will be examples of the right way to do it. I think it's encouraging as well that among the 300 some odd projects worldwide in the pilot are a number that include affordable housing as an important part.
Thank you. Another question on...
I'm sorry, this is Jonathan. I have a different answer to this, which is, I heard the question differently, which is, it said there are local zoning issues and can green zoning overcome them? And so far, I haven't seen anything overcome local zoning. Local zoning seems to rule, and I'm not sure if there's any that just by... Now, what we are seeing is local zoning incentives. So, for example, in San Francisco, if you have a LEED green gold, a building designed to LEED gold, you get a building permit within a week. But I have not seen anything that green overlays that actually transform zoning.
We have a program in Massachusetts which was passed in the last couple of years, which is smart growth zoning. It's a voluntary incentive program to get localities to be more receptive to moderately priced housing in town centers and near transit stops. So it's a related idea, but it's a voluntary program, and compelling localities doesn't seem to be politically in the cards in Massachusetts or perhaps anywhere else. Here's another question on financing from B. Miller. Affordable green rental housing is easier to finance because the operating costs can be captured by the developer. Affordable green for sale housing is harder. What support, incentives, strategies are available for sale projects that are green?
One thing is Fannie Mae's energy efficient mortgage program, which in effect credits the energy saved for the home buyer and treats it as income and underwrites it as such, and therefore gives a bigger mortgage.
Jonathan, just to follow up on that, I was going to ask a related question, so let me do it now. I mean, when you are able to achieve such remarkable savings, it does open up various possibilities for the kind of financial engineering you just described. Is creative financing, part of this? Is this developing as a big part of making this movement spread?
Creative financing is required for any affordable housing, unfortunately, in America. We simply don't have sufficient credit and subsidies and programs for it, so you got to patch a lot together. But because I'd really follow the point that Stockton said, which is you're going to see more and more states and cities, and maybe with the new administration, the federal government, put green criteria on their allocation system. And so people are going to get greener and greener just to be able to compete for funds. Since the projects really only cost a little bit more and can even be designed at the same cost to be relatively green, I think it's going to enhance one's ability to compete for the funds. I'm not sure it's going to bring in that many new funds unless we get a good green tax credit program.
Paul, this is Stockton. I'd just add a couple of thoughts to that. In addition, well, on energy efficient mortgages, there are a couple very good websites that Jim, in whatever way makes sense, I can send to you so everybody who's been on the call today can access them, that describe Fannie Mae's product as well as some that are insured by the federal government through FHA and VA. In addition, in single family, I think an area where green affordable developers might look, and where there could be the potential for partnerships in actually doing the improvements, is in the resources that are available for weatherization and energy upgrades. These programs have typically been run by organizations that haven't necessarily had housing development or even neighborhood revitalization as their focus, but that is starting to change. And while the weatherization and related programs are very underfunded, in many states there's a significant amount going in to single-family home rehabs that's generating energy savings and other benefits that could certainly be connected to and brought into the financing mix for green single-family homes. And multifamily, again, Jonathan, I think, is right on. What's encouraging, though, I think, is that there are a number of interesting pilot programs around the country where organizations, including enterprise, are trying to test out the availability of more favorable financing, higher loan-to-value ratios, lower cost of capital, other sorts of slight benefits that can be incentives and that reflect the increasingly confident proposition that these buildings are going to perform better. Green multifamily buildings will have higher cash flow, they'll be able to support higher mortgage amounts, and therefore should be able to start to command financial products that reflect some of those advantages in the marketplace.
Yes.
We can take the development practice to a sufficient scale.
Thank you. Nathan has a question about public housing. He says, in the realm of public housing where decreasing density is a focus of many groups, how do you balance green concepts such as the use of multifamily housing with the social impact of stacking too many people in tight spaces?
Well, this is Stockton. I'd take a shot. I think without overstating the case, I think there are encouraging signs that opportunities to increase the healthiness and energy efficiency in public housing are there as well, mainly through a couple of things. One is the energy bill of 2005 extended the payback period for public housing agencies that are engaged in energy performance contracts from 12 years to 20 years, which is already starting to create a buzz in the energy performance contracting industry that public housing is in fact an industry of some opportunity for that particular form of energy financing. The other area is in a new regime that HUD has started to impose on public housing agencies that will essentially require them at the local level to operate their portfolios not as monolithic groups or portfolios of properties, but on a property-by-property basis, more like private landlords. And based on some work that Jim Stockard at Harvard did, there's a strong feeling that this approach will not only lead to better management generally, but will open up opportunities for public housing agencies to utilize energy efficiency, financing, and improvement kinds of programs.
And then I would add too, because as Jonathan highlighted, with our population growth projecting the way it is, we really do have to address building at higher density. And higher density doesn't mean simply stacking units on top of each other and as close to each other as possible with no thought for anything else. It's really, it can be done in such a way that you still have connections, however small, to green spaces. You know, you can have trees, and you can have access to greener roofs. You can have pathways and connections to trails, or you know, make an effort to work with other groups to daylight streams in the neighborhood. So, you know, I think that we still have to address density, but we need to think about it slightly differently so that, you know, we're making it a human scale density at the same time.
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of middle ground between suburban sprawl and Robert Taylor homes, and
Yes.
so I think there are plenty of opportunities for density, for income mix, for healthy communities that achieve the results that Jonathan pointed out that urban densities achieve.
So, actually, can I just wanted one more issue about density. I've just put up an image on the screen, and I don't know if everybody can see it. This I should have done as a poll question, but this is an affordable housing project we actually did in downtown Aspen for workers. We sold units, this is about 7 or 8 years ago, for $59,000 to $135,000. And the question I would ask everybody is, what do you think the density of this project is? And I'll give you just one more clue. It has this interior court in every single space. Every single unit opens out to a private terrace or a little walkway that are all connected with those pathways that go around. And the answer is, this is a density of 88 units to the acre. And no one would ever, and it happens to have underground parking, which really helps. But the issue to me is not density, it's design. It is the quality of the design and the way the project meets the community. We focus far too much on density numbers without questioning what are we really creating.
And this was in Aspen?
That's the ski slopes in the background, right in the heart of the downtown. Walkable to work housing.
Wow. Okay. Here's a question from Meg, I think for the enterprise people. Are you, who are funders, establishing networks that educate wannabe greens? Can you set up active peer exchanges, planning tools? Where can other housing providers go to learn?
Great question. We are trying to build that network, mostly online right now, through events such as this, live online events, through our conferences, and creating both meeting places and online opportunities for us to network. We have a growing listserv of developers and interested individuals who are really trying to figure out how to provide greener, affordable housing. So most of these opportunities are available through the Green Communities website.
Thank you. A statement, not a question, from Dave, who says, the evidence for integrated pest management and how other housing improvements affect health can be found at the Healthy Homes Clearinghouse at www.nchh.org. There is an important study from Britain showing that housing improvements result in reductions in medical care expenditures by 7-fold, particularly important in relation to the emerging national discussion on health insurance. Thank you, Dave. Horace says, clearly if green building techniques were cost-effective and showed customer benefits, companies would have jumped in long ago. To mainstream this technology and focus, there needs to be some private sector reform or partnerships and incentives. What is being discussed at the policy level about moving the needle on a national level? Who'd like to take that one?
Well, this is Stockton. I mentioned a couple examples of where Congress is starting to incorporate green principles into federal housing legislation, what HUD was doing. I think the spirit of this question really relates back to where Jonathan started this discussion, which is at an even higher level, you know, where we're not really just talking about greening housing projects or housing programs, but you know, thinking about housing and housing policy in a totally new way, and really looking at this more holistically in the context of people and communities, and I think it's possibly the case, and hopefully the case, that the increasing attention on climate change and these macro issues that really threaten all of us may be an opportunity for a much bigger rethought discussion of affordable housing and community development in the context of more intelligent policies for how we grow and develop as a country. I fully admit that sounds a bit fanciful, but I think it's legitimate to see all the momentum as hopefully moving us towards some bigger ways to think about the work that we're doing.
I'd like to add that I actually think the question is a question that's rapidly going out of date. I am finding that the acceptance of green building, the desire for green building is so rapidly transforming that we are now seeing more than 100 of the Fortune 500 companies putting green building requirements into their RFPs for space. Any company that has office space in Europe, for example, knows the benefits of it. There's actually a supply-demand mismatch in the office world now with so much demand for green building. I've been talking to developers of market-rate suburban residential projects that are seeing this enormous demand. I think we're at the bottom of a very steeply rising curve. I also, by the way, am getting more and more calls from investors who are saying, we have a fund, we want to invest in green building technologies, what do you recommend? So the money, the pure market rate inspired money is out there looking for green building investments. I think we're going to see a lot of on the ground change quickly.
Okay, George asked, how do green community guidelines compare with Earthcraft standards? Does anybody know what Earthcraft is?
Earthcraft is the housing standard that Southface created. Southface is a nonprofit organization operating out of Atlanta, Georgia, and Earthcraft primarily was developed for housing developments in the Southeast. Dennis Creech, the executive director, likes to say, anyone developing housing that drinks sweet tea. But they can be applied elsewhere and have certainly been applied most recently in the state of Virginia. Earthcraft, Southface and Enterprise have a strong history of working together and, in fact, have purposely aligned all of the Earthcraft standards and the green communities criteria. So there is a direct correlation between the two. The delivery mechanisms of how you actually get your Earthcraft certification versus how you actually receive funding and recognition through green communities are slightly different. But overall, the content in terms of the methods and materials that you're being asked to implement and integrate into your building are pretty much the same.
Thank you. Mark says, I'm concerned that as an advocate of green affordable housing, we underestimate the actual costs associated with the average green affordable housing project. We're seeing costs go up more than 5% on most of our deals, but I keep hearing 1 to 2%, which I don't know describes the average inner city deal. Are we setting others and ourselves up for disappointment by promoting 1 to 2% cost increases?
I would say not. I would say that out of the 220 plus developments that we are seeing come through green communities meeting the green communities criteria, those 1 to 2% numbers are right on. The difference may be construction costs, cost of land. They may also be pushing the sort of renewable energy sources being used in the developments. We still aren't seeing some of those strategies be as cost effective as we'd like them in terms of installing photovoltaics or using geothermal systems. But, meeting the green communities criteria, those really are the numbers that we're seeing.
In my experience, the reason why people spend more than the 1 to 2, and as I said, we do projects that cost 0, is that you need a team, and that means a contractor, engineers, architects who really have experience. You said you've done several projects, questioner, so I'm sure you have experience, but that have experience doing green affordable housing. What we found is it takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of planning up front. We certainly, and we're doing a lot of things that actually save us money. I'll give you one very, very simple one. You take a boiler, a gas-fired boiler, and you put it on the roof. Boilers are in basements because we used to shovel coal down. You put it on the roof, and the boiler itself runs 3% more efficient because it doesn't have to heat the flue gases to rise through a building. And I'm hearing a lot of distracting noise. But anyway.
Actually, Mr. Rowe, sorry to interrupt you again. I'm going to just issue a brief announcement to the audience members. I believe one of you who have dialed in has dialed in incorrectly, and thus you're not muted. So would all audience members who have dialed into the conference number please press star 6? By pressing star 6, you should mute yourself, and hopefully...
You see what I think happened? Somebody just put themselves on hold. We're now hearing the radio that is on their hold music.
West Bank, member FDIC.
West Bank.
Somebody's put themselves on hold, so maybe,
Bank for your buck.
and that's what we're hearing.
Located with
let's try proceeding, and hopefully,
Right. Maybe why don't you email a little message too? But anyway, so but the bottom line is by putting the boiler on the roof, we saved $80,000 of not having to have a flue through the building, and we picked up all that square footage so we could make a bigger apartment at no additional cost. So it's things like that that you've got to aim towards to get to the 0 to 2%.
features no minimum balance or monthly.
Boy, that is annoying, but we'll try to.
Card with rewards. Free
Ken,
internet banking.
from Canada says, in Canada we don't have federal or state funds
Check.
available to the available in the U.S. As market developers of affordable housing, we've had good success selling green homes in spite of 2 to 3% higher costs compared to non-green equivalent homes.
Really click with our customers.
Experience of market-based developers in the U.S. for passing on higher costs.
And where you want. Pay your bills, check balances, transfer funds. It's fast, it's easy.
You want to take that one?
Just visit U.S. Bank.
Really market-based development? What's the experience?
A 5-star service. Guaranteed.
Does
US Bank.
the questioner mean market rate housing or market rate more broadly?
Using the equity in your home is the smart way to borrow at the lowest rate.
Market developers of affordable housing.
Gives you the cash.
Oh, I see.
Your fixer.
Well, we've got
We've
one of the
bills and more.
pioneers,
Apply online,
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
I think there are others as well, but maybe he would be better to address from that perspective.
5-star service guaranteed.
I'm sorry, you got to repeat it. It's so hard to hear with this radio in the background.
Yeah, let me try one more set.
Thank you.
Remuting again and see if that resolves it.
Somebody's put themselves on hold. What's happened is somebody put themselves on hold, so they're not hearing you.
Bill pay and online statements. And
so you got to write. You need to write. What you actually do is you blast the screen. So in large letters, instead of it currently saying Stockton Williams, it needs to say, "If you put the phone on hold, disconnect. We're hearing your radio."
At U.S. Bank.
All right, I will do that.
This line is now unmuted. This line is now muted.
Your families find affordable places.
But while you're doing that, tell me what was the question again? It was about market rate. I didn't fully hear it.
It was a questioner from Canada saying we don't have federal or state subsidies like the ones you have in the U.S. So as market developers of affordable housing, they've had good success selling green homes in spite of a 2 to 3% higher cost. If you're doing purely market-based development in the U.S., are customers receptive to paying?
Member FDIC.
The answer is it's a very locationally varied. So, for example, in places like Seattle, Denver, absolutely yes. Interestingly, there has not been as much receptivity down south, and yet that is the place with the biggest air conditioning costs. And I think that we are going to find in a very short order that, for example, the governor of Florida has just come out with a dramatic climate change policy because he recognizes that his state's about to flood. And so I think all of a sudden you're going to see a lot more green building acceptance in markets like that.
Customer service in the industry. It's called.
Hey, here's a question about blending. Question is anyone blending green with child-friendly design? We'll go right on. Next question is, if it costs about the same to build, why doesn't everyone do it? What are some of the features that reduce costs to help offset higher costs in other areas?
That's a great question. Why isn't everybody doing this? I think we know enough now where we all should be making the case why we're not doing it. There's so much evidence that this is the right way to proceed, and the best strategy is really thinking first about what it is you're trying to achieve and how you want to do it, and look for trade-offs. And if there is a higher efficient system that you really want to use to achieve your energy efficiency goals, then maybe you can place it so that it's smaller and you can recognize savings through other measures. But that you just have to sort of think about it all up front and work the puzzle.
I think there are some barriers. They may not necessarily be in higher costs per se, but I think certainly in some parts of the country, developers and contractors and architects are still learning some of the basic principles of green building and design in affordable housing, and so there's a continued educational effort that I think has to be made. And secondly, as we've touched on, clearly in some places, particularly at the local level, whether it's with respect to zoning and land use, or even things like ventilation, building codes and public requirements oftentimes directly hinder a smarter, healthier, more energy efficient approach to affordable housing. So I think we've got to work on building capacity and changing policy. And as part of doing both, all of us who are creating green affordable homes have to communicate what our experience has been and what the real results, the quantifiable data on costs and benefits are. I think the more of us that start to do that, the more quickly those who have not yet gotten the word will get it and be able to go forward on a green project with confidence.
Okay, I'm going to just advise our three experts that I'm going to ask you for a concluding thought or two in a couple of minutes. We're going to do a couple more questions, and then I'm going to come back to you for some closing thoughts, and then we'll turn it back to Jim before 5:30, our closing time. Andrew asks, what is the preferred method of heating in green affordable housing, and how should fresh air be delivered?
This is Jonathan, and the preferred method of heating is insulation. The preferred method is to use as little heat as possible. By far the cheapest, best thing you can do is add more insulation. And then obviously it depends on your community, whether you use gas or oil or what are your other sources. But the number one goal is to think of having less heating. And the best method for fresh air in housing are operable windows. We do have a project, and I'll show it very briefly if I can bring up my slides, which is by the way, an Enterprise Green Community project, in which what we have done, this is in construction now in this Harlem. So you'll see the sun shading on the south side of this building, but more importantly, over each window there's something called a trickle vent, so that even when the windows are closed, fresh air is coming in. We draw the windows in. This is a building built out of prefab, out of concrete plank. We bring the air into the apartment, and then the kitchen and bath exhaust, instead of going to the roof, they just go into the little holes that are in the plank. Planks are hollow, and they go through those holes and back to the outside. So we have a continuous fresh air cycle in the apartment because we don't have ducts to the roof. It's completely sealed, so you can't get insects or noise from apartment to apartment. By the way, again, on the cost saving, we save the cost of all the metal duct in this building, so it's a cheaper solution. And as the warm air goes out through the plank, it warms the plank and it re-radiates out, so you get radiant heat and you get totally passive heat capture. So again, the fresh air is coming through the window or the trickle vent, and we're saving as much of the heat inside the building.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer asks, Earthcraft requires Energy Star verification, whereas Green Communities does not. Why? And have there been any problems not achieving Energy Star performance standards since there is no verification required?
We purposely, within the Green Communities criteria, ask that each development, if it's a fourth-story or lower building, meet Energy Star. We don't require the certification to be submitted to us. Again, there is a cost involved in doing that, and we felt that that was a decision that needed to be left up to the developer to decide to actually get the certification. And there are ways to design and measure the performance of the building to Energy Star without actually getting it certified, although we're, we definitely recommend that path if you can afford it, and think that it can be, you can meet the same performance standard without actually getting the certification. And we are testing many of the completed projects through Green Communities right now, and are confident that they are meeting up to the level of expected performance that they were designed to.
Okay, apologize that we didn't get to every single question, but we got to the majority of them. I'd now like to ask our superb panelists to offer a concluding thought, starting back with you, Jonathan, then Dana, then finally Stockton.
So for all of you who are thinking about doing green affordable housing, the best thing to do is just give it a try. And Enterprise is an enormous resource of information, of financing, and of technical assistance. If it's your first project, bring together the best team you can. Try and find architects, contractors, and others who are experienced. But if not, reach out to neighbors or other colleagues that Enterprise can connect you with who may be experienced, but go for it. Once you do it, I think you'll love it.
Thank you. Dana?
Yes, I would echo that. I think there's no doubt that there's at least one thing that you could be doing more sustainably in your next development, or if I think there were some policymakers amongst us as you create additional policies. And so just push, and I think altogether we're going to see a dramatic change, and we need to get there. The slide that I just brought up shows, if every one of the 5.5 million homes that are supported by federal programs were built more sustainably, these are the changes that we would see in the environment. And so I agree wholeheartedly that just try something additional, and don't be afraid to ask for help and to look around and see what else is being done successfully.
Great. Stockton?
It's hard to follow Jonathan and Dana on any kind of panel, but I would just offer that I think the green building movement and the affordable housing and community development movement have both been characterized by innovation and leadership and a desire to do better. And what is so exciting to see these two movements coming together the way they are now is that we are all learning from each other, and there is no doubt that affordable housing can be and should be green as a matter of course, and that our two movements are perfectly positioned to prove that out, and as part of it, really ensure that discussions about climate change and how we reshape a new green economy in this country don't leave low-income families and communities behind, but in fact give them better opportunities to succeed in our society.
Well, thank you all. If we were in a room together, I'd ask for applause for what has been an absolutely superb discussion, and the expertise that the three of you bring to bear is truly impressive. I want to thank Knowledge Plex and the Kennedy School at Harvard for bringing us this web conference. And Jim Cooney, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Grogan. And I would also like to thank our panel and moderator today. This was an excellent event, and I sincerely appreciate your patience dealing with the audio troubles we were having. And I'd also like to throw out a special thank you to Jim Levitt, whose help and expertise in planning this important event has been invaluable. I'd just like to take a second to show our audience members how to get to the chat room. It looks like we've had a lot of people leave, which makes sense because it's late in the workday on the East Coast, but we're going to throw the option out there just in case. And for those who are interested in continuing the dialogue, what we're going to do is you're going to want to go to the Government Innovators Network homepage, which is at www.innovations.harvard.edu. and then you're going to go to the What's New section, which is at the top right-hand side of the page. Sorry, I should have this called up. All right, so that's the top right corner. And then just click on that link that says Green Affordable Housing Post-Event Chat Room. And then from there, you'll have a screen that just asks you for a name. You can type that in and press Enter. And then you'll be in a chat room where you can chat with anyone else who's in there. Just type in your comments and click Enter. And you can also share links and documents and other things like that. And I'll just leave those instructions up for anybody who's interested. Thanks again to everybody. I think the event was a great success, minus some audio troubles, and until next time.
Go Red Sox!
Thanks a lot. I got to go. Go Rockies.
Thank you.
All right.